There is a dark place, but I'm not going there. No, no, not on my way. There is a dark place, but I'm not going there. No, no, not on my way.
Hi, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Lex.
And this is Or Learn Parkour.
It's a podcast about ADHD done by two people who for sure have ADHD. And the exact words before we kicked off the intro were, would you like to say it again? In the words of the great Pete Seeger, say it again!
So here's the thing. I've already forgotten.
Me too, that's why I passed it over to you. Shit! No.
Oh boy.
We came out swinging on this one. It's a podcast about ADHD. Done
It is.
by two people who have ADHD.
We
Jordan
do.
and Lex.
I'm Jordan.
I'm Lex. Hello, audience. Welcome back.
Or welcome if this is your first time doing parkour with us. Just to manage expectations from the outset, there will be no parkour.
Yeah, no parkour. It's a mental part. It's a verbal parkour because we jump from topic to topic.
Indeed.
LOL. Look at that. Finally, an actual metaphorical relation to the Or Learn parkour.
We're only
Like
51 episodes and change in at this
wow, 51. Is it really
Bonkers.
51?
It will be, yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because our 50th was last week. A little fun besties moment.
Or 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago. Okay, yeah, whatever. Last time.
Yes.
Yeah, and also, in terms of welcome versus welcome back, I mean, time is a flat circle, and we're all kind of all at once everywhere, right? Like, the Daniels weren't wrong, right? So,
Yeah, it could be welcome back in terms of, like, welcome back from the next episode, or it could be, like, welcome back. We both, like, fought with Joan of Arc together and have been reincarnated and are meeting, our souls are meeting again, even if the body making this sound is meeting the body hearing it for the first time.
or reading it,
Or reading it.
or watching a transcript on YouTube, because we have that now.
We do.
I will say, I did just have a very funny thought. We're Chicago based. I know
We
that doesn't
sure are.
matter a ton, but it does to us. It does to us. We're a Chicago based podcast.
We're very proud of that. We love Chicago.
We've been here for 5 years now, which is a lot for us, and it's very fun, but also bananas. But all that said, we've been having a very Chicago pride sort of just phase, I should say. Like, not even phase, it just kind of like, if you are from Chicago or you live in Chicago, even if you've only been here for like a year or two, it digs its claws in quick. And this city will take you and hold you and not let you go. And it's delightful and wonderful, but it is also a very harrowing experience at first. But sometimes you become a city that overpoweringly votes in the most progressive mayor pretty much in the country right now. And y'all, people are so mad about it. Not in Chicago. In Chicago, we're great, right? Because we voted for this. We agreed to this, and we're all excited,
Yeah,
right?
that's a crucial part of this story, is that it is the people who do not live in the city that this person is mayor of who are sharing their opinions.
Yes, and it's been happening a lot. So I feel like because of just the nature of being from Chicago at this point, I would say, being Chicago-based, we, we are incredibly biased and have a fair amount of pride. So I'm just saying that with caveat, whatever. Because I'm about to say, I feel like there's this need to, like, go on the record defending Chicago a little bit, right? Like, I'm like, fuck off. Like, leave us alone.
Yeah.
Let us be. We voted for this. We're happy. Like, I'm sorry, are you the shop local capital of the country?
No. Unless you are also in Andersonville. In which case, hey, neighbors.
And if you're like, Andersonville, that's not Chicago. That sounds like a suburb. It's a neighborhood, to be clear.
We've got neighborhoods.
Yes. Like a city.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've just noticed sometimes people are like, oh, Andersonville, is that like around north of Evanston or like in like around Skokie type area? And I have to be like, it's a neighborhood.
It's a neighborhood.
Like, it's a little one. It's a little neighborhood, and it's a part of Edgewater, which is a bigger neighborhood, but like it's still a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyways, great place to be, feral place to be.
Yeah.
And also, I don't really know what the point is of this. I just really felt like I needed to come out swinging and say we're from Chicago and we fucking love it. And if you have anything to say about Chicago, I will kick you in the shins through this microphone. You know?
Do you want to explain the context of people voicing their opinions and the shirt that you bought about it? Is that what's happening here?
Well, so I think we have to be careful on the legality of it, right? Because I don't want to get sued for some fucking defamation bullshit, because they love to do this. But a certain news organization on the national level has, you know, just consistently always made choices. So it's not a surprising moment, but they may or may not have sent a journalist to a suburb of Chicago that is notoriously the name, like the name of this Chicago suburb is notoriously the one that everyone uses as the butt of jokes of people who are from the suburbs but say they're from Chicago. Mm-hmm. When they're not at all. And like, you know, I recognize that there's a lot of people that being in Chicagoland, because Chicagoland is a thing.
Oh, totally.
And suburbs are still a suburb of a major hub, right? Mm-hmm. So I understand the allegiance, but I also recognize that it's not the same fucking place. Mm-hmm. And they allegedly, I say all this shit. This happened. I just don't want to get in trouble. I'm scared of them.
Those are facts, though.
Yes.
That a reporter representing this news company went to a city that is not Chicago to ask them opinions about Chicago.
And what they thought about our mayor, who we voted for.
Not their mayor.
Not their mayor.
No.
And so there have always been, like, this sentiment, I feel like, is shared by all major U.S. cities, in that if you live there and you hear certain news organizations paint them as these horrible urban wastelands of crime and terror and all
depravity.
Of this. Yeah. Just totally ignoring the economic downfall that would occur if a state did not have this city within its borders. Just a thought. Just to mention. You know. I'm not saying that's applicable here, but, you know. I'm not saying that either. So, I feel like most people from major cities can relate to and relate to the just pure unadulterated rage that just bubbles up within you as soon as some fuck off person who does not live where you live starts talking shit about it. And, you know, actually, I'd like to extend this to, like, rural areas too, because I feel like coming from a small town, the rap that we get as being from a small town, or right, like it's not fair, because guess what? People live everywhere, and people are fucking people, and everyone has different opinions and values, and that's good, that's valuable, but we can't. Okay, I'm fine. This is becoming a lot bigger than just explaining the context of Chicago, but basically, there's a lot of people say, shut the fuck up about Chicago. It's a well-known phrase, I think, from the past couple decades, especially since, you know, national news rose to the forefront. And because of this recent interview from this national news organization, there has been a resurgence of the shut the fuck up about Chicago phrase. And there was an artist, or is, I'm sure they're still alive and well.
Hope so. This was like this week.
It was this week. I don't know why I said was. It's really, but an artist here in Chicago made 2 lines of t-shirts and shirts and sweatshirts, like baseball tees, etc. One set with a Wrigleyville-based art.
Field?
Or Wrigley Field, yeah, sorry. Wrigley Field-based art, and the other one, what's the one there? The White Sox, Soldier Field.
No, it's Guaranteed Rate Field. You could just say, like, the White Sox field.
Yeah, yeah, but, like, yeah, so, and then where the White Sox play, guaranteed rate field or whatever. We live on the north side, so we're just way more in the Wrigley sort of
We are significantly
camp.
closer to Wrigley, yes.
Yeah, I mean, we can hear Bruce Springsteen sing the fucking national anthem when he has his fucking Wrigleyville moment every once in a while.
Yeah, he's got pipes.
He's got pipes and also a frightening weaponization of the sound system. Honestly, it's impressive. We're like a 15-minute drive north.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I guess that's Chicago driving, right? So it's like we're like a mile and a half away.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, but that's really far in Chicago travel time.
Mm-hmm.
But not for the speed of sound. And,
I heard they're reopening the Taco Bell down there.
oh, thank God. That was such a poor choice.
I was a loss.
It was a huge loss.
Mm-hmm.
That's really exciting, honestly. That just made my day. So anyways, they made a line of t-shirts, each with, like, the Wrigley Field and then the White Sox. So, like, Chicago Cubs and the White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them in those, like, specific traditional logo styles.
Well, it's the marquee of each field, right?
Well, so the other one is, like, the White Sox logo with, like, the font and, like, the baseball. Yeah, so,
okay.
like, they're different.
Gotcha. The Cubs one is Wrigley Field. The White Sox one is
It's the
logo.
actual White
Okay.
Sox,
All right.
yeah. So it
Cool.
is the White Sox and then Wrigley Field, which is, but the Cubs are the Cubs and Wrigley Field, and I don't know. The Cubs aren't the Cubs without Wrigley Field, is sort of, versus the White Sox are, it's like, who wants to say out loud and advertise for guaranteed rate? I don't.
Yeah, valid.
So, like, no, this is not.
But you're totally fine shilling for Wrigley gum.
Yeah.
Just gonna for free advertise for big gum out here.
I didn't even think of it that way, but now I feel like a hypocrite. Yeah, you got me. Yeah, I'll accept that. It's fair. You got me there.
To be fair, I think that gum versus mortgages are maybe slightly different things.
Yeah, especially
I was just giving you shit.
Yeah, no, especially in relation to baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the amount of pitchers that chew gum, the amount of umpires that chew gum, like, while they're playing. Like, I'm not kidding.
Huh.
Like, I feel like that's maybe a bit more old-timey baseball.
Yeah.
But, like, I can just picture it in my head.
It is more, connected
Mhm.
thematically.
Yes. So, anyways,
Well, I'm
but
sure most baseball players have mortgages.
Yeah, yes. But so both of these t-shirt lines say, shut the fuck up about Chicago, and then have an extra line that says, you don't live here, which I feel like is just, it pushes it over the edge into, like, that good old Chicago aggression.
Mm-hmm.
Like, shut the fuck up. Like, as if shut the fuck up about Chicago isn't enough of a, like...
It's very direct.
It's very direct, and the whole thing of it, it's just all it feels very Chicago to me, but the added reasoning, Jesus Christ, on any other recording day, I would be like, shut the fuck up, are you kidding, we're recording in here, but today,
That feels appropriate.
that felt so appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chicago.
So you got a great shirt.
So I got a great shirt. Yeah, I'm excited. I'll post it once I get it.
Fabulous.
Because, on the one hand, it's like, yay, supporting local artists, haha. But then on the other hand, I'm over here like, I cannot wait to wear this to a Cubs game. All these out-of-towners just coming into Wrigleyville.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't even blame Wrigleyville for marking the fuck up out of their prices, because I'm like, get them.
Yeah.
Get the tourists.
Yeah.
Get them. Give us your money.
Money, please.
Money, please. Anyway, so yeah, we're based in Chicago, and we make a podcast about ADHD, and you're probably like, hey, none of that was about ADHD. That was also bordering on political, because you talked openly about who you voted for. Welcome to our podcast about ADHD.
Because we both have that.
That's kind of the whole bag. Like,
Yeah.
we forget, and it's not intentional. That's the thing, right? Like, I need you all to know, it's never intentional. Like, we come into this closet and we're like, okay, we've got this topic and we're going to cover it. We've done all of this fucking research. Let's do a good, informative episode. And then do you know what happens? 99% of our episodes, we get off topic and we just forget to give you all of the meaty information. But from our understanding, y'all seem to enjoy that. So you're welcome, I guess. But also, I'm sorry. Whichever one you feel applies most to you.
Either way, thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah.
We're happy you're here.
51. Over the hill.
Over the hill.
Like last time we were on top of the hill. Now we are officially on the way down, baby. I mean, unless we, go longer than 100 episodes, which is very possible.
It is.
So,
if we keep going at this pace, we'll hit 100 episodes.
In like 3 years.
2 years, yeah. 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years, give or take. If any of you are wondering, hey, what does every other Monday mean when you're not posting every other Monday? Like I said, time is a flat circle. Just, we forget. Okay?
That's why it says every other Monday-ish.
Ish.
So again, thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, and to that effect, just to add the fun caveat before I forget, we are not doctors, we're not medical professionals of any kind, we're not psychiatrists, we're not therapists. We are literally just two absolute fucking idiots who have ADHD and like sharing their experience because, lo and behold, a lot of other people have it or know people who have it. So,
Yeah, I think there's an episode we did, 40 or something ago where we talk about what percentage of the population has ADHD. I don't remember anymore, but it's there.
It's there.
Somewhere.
And, just to add this caveat, there's a good chance that the shit we say, or there's not even a good chance, there's a solid 99% chance that most of the things we say in our episodes are wrong or like just stupid or even at this point, we've been doing this podcast for 3 years? Almost 3 years this July.
Yeah.
So we've been doing this podcast for 3 years-ish. And even just 3 years later, there's plenty of shit that I'm sure it's outdated.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I was like, we're not just saying wrong things on purpose.
No, not
we thought
intentionally.
It was right when we said it, but,
yeah,
medical science continues to improve every day.
Yeah, and also, given the whole, ADHD thing, sometimes we just, get off topic and don't give you, the full contextual picture. So if you're coming to this podcast for information, LOL.
We're doing our best. We do a lot of research for some episodes. We're not ever antagonistically trying to mislead any of you.
No, but sometimes I think it'd be funny to say that ADHD farts cure cancer.
You did say that. Well, that's true. Okay.
So, you know what I mean? Sometimes it just goes off the rails.
So 99% of the time, we are not actively trying to mislead you.
Yeah, no, to be fair, that one was when I was left to my own devices alone because it was when we did our separate episode.
Yes.
Because I had the COVIDs.
Yes.
So anyways, we've been talking for a long time. Oopsie poopsie. Let's get going. What are we talking about this week? What are we supposed to talk about this week? What's the goal?
The topic that we planned for this episode ahead of time.
It's so funny because it's so far off from anything we've talked about so far.
Y'all are never gonna guess this one.
No.
I'm gonna give everyone 5 seconds of silence in your head to just, based on what we have said this episode so far, what you think we were supposed to talk about.
Yeah. Did you think about it?
Got it in your head?
Uh-huh.
So on this episode of Wholehearted Parkour, an ADHD podcast, we'll be talking about You gonna let me say it or not?
No.
It's not even that funny. We're building it up too much.
No, it's not that funny. It's just, it's not funny. What you're saying isn't funny. You're not funny.
Yeah,
no,
I know.
I'm just kidding. No, it's... no, I'm kidding.
It's funny.
I'm kidding. I take it back. I'm sorry. I love you, bro.
I love you too, bro. All right,
no, it's just funny to me because I'm sorry.
Talking about pets. having ADHD and having pets.
Little animals.
Yes.
That live in your home
In
with
your
you.
home. Indeed. Which is a delightful concept when you phrase it that way. If you've been parkouring with us for a while, you will know that we each have 2 cats, which is a normal number of cats for one person to have.
Totally fucking normal, okay? Okay?
Yeah.
And for those of you who are worried or upset, we've said this in other episodes too, but we have like a 1,200 square foot apartment, and like, they have so many toys.
They have so many toys. They have so many beds. They have lots of room. They have plenty of food and water and litter boxes, and they get along for the most part. I think Root Beer and Louie are probably taking a nap together right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they are well loved, and they have plenty of space and plenty of resources.
Mm-hmm. They have so many fucking hammocks.
They do.
Like, it's not even just that they have a ton of beds. Like, they have a ton of squishy big beds, but they also have a ton of hammocks and shelves and toys on the hammocks and shelves.
You
Like,
crocheted a blanket for one of the hammocks.
yeah. Like, these babies, they... Oh my... Are you fucking kidding me? God. These babies are fucking enriched as shit.
They're so spoiled.
They're so spoiled. Like, 2 of them are relatively close to being fully harness trained. Relatively. In the case of, like, cats being harness trained.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, where you just kind of put it on them every once in a while.
Okay.
And they get over it.
Louis has a fleece sweater, so...
Yeah, but then they get to go outside.
Yeah.
So it's anyways.
So they're great.
And we have a fenced-in yard, if you're worried about that. Like, it's not just a harness, it's also harness and fenced-in secure yard. So, I promise, we love these cats so much.
Yes, honestly.
And have, in harder times, have gone without groceries so that they can have what they need. So, like, I promise, these babies, they're good.
Yeah.
And they're so cute.
Yeah.
And they are, in our opinion, the optimal kind of pet to have when you have ADHD.
Yes. So that was one of our points. So that was one of our points that we were going to
That was one of our points.
That was one of our points in it.
It's a point, in it? Is that point?
Point.
It's a point or a point?
Point.
Okay, we don't bully other American cities, but if you're from the UK, get fucked.
I like how you say that, given that we do have listeners in the UK, and most of them are your friends.
Yeah, get fucked. Love y'all. Love y'all.
I have nothing to do with this. That's not true. I was getting in on the accent there, so I can't say I have nothing to do with it. But I am also not the person who said get fucked twice.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
Yeah.
I
am feeling very aggressive today. Like chilled aggressive, but confusing vibes. We went to the craft fair earlier.
We did.
Because our neighborhood has a craft fair this weekend, where mostly Chicago-based artists and a few out-of-towners, I guess, but mostly Chicago-based artists came and sold the things they had been making. And it was real cool and fun. We both spent maybe too much money, but who gives a shit?
We got some great stuff for our house.
Yes. Yes.
And we
so
supported
cool
some
shit.
local artists.
Exactly. So... Also, I got some earrings that are, like, see-through glittery pickles. Like, see-through glittery pickle slices.
And I got some earrings that are polymer clay onions.
Yes!
Which feels on brand for both of us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Saying it out loud together, I'm kind of putting that, and I was like,
Yeah, I mean, we just need to get some garlic earrings, and we'll be fucking set to make a Bloody Mary with those. Like, shit.
Are there onions in Bloody Marys?
It depends. Sometimes, like, I mean, it's like, you can put, like, onion powder.
Oh.
Like, it's tomato soup, but cold. So, like, if you think about things that, well, I know you don't really eat tomato soup either. So, because
sometimes I go for a bisque. I can go for a bisque.
But, like, I mean, it's not just tomatoes mashed up in there. Like, there's seasoning and other vegetables sometimes put in and all that. And, like, onion, garlic, celery, salt. Like, just the savory, savory borderline spicy.
Mm-hmm.
But also sometimes just straight up spicy, because I will add hot sauce, I will add pepper. If I get a pre-made Bloody Mary mix, I usually get the zesty version.
Doctor it up a little bit.
I use the Clausen pickle chips that are spicy. I'll put pepper jack cheese in there. I'm realizing I like a really spiced up Bloody Mary.
Yeah, well, see, and that's where I was trying to, I think, remember through everything I've seen you put in a Bloody Mary, or...
Yeah, I've never, like, chopped up a raw onion and put it in there. But I could, probably.
Well, like, with, like, a boba straw, or what?
Actually, I was kind of picturing, like, on a toothpick with, like, pickled onions. Because, like, sometimes, like, high-end brunch places will have, like...
Oh, like the little pearl onions?
Yeah, like an elevated Bloody Mary bar.
Do you still eat those, though? Because I feel like...
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of, like you know,
like pickled... Oh, you're right.
Like a plate of pickles.
Ones. Yeah.
And, like... Yeah,
sorry, I think I was still on the raw onion trend, which...
I mean, I guess you could make that kind of Bloody Mary for Shrek.
Yeah. Or those guys from Holes.
Yeah.
Fuckers liked... I don't know if they liked... They didn't... I don't think they liked onions. They just, like, had them.
Well, they had just trekked across the desert, and all they had eaten was
it's all
potentially
they had to eat.
Like 100-plus-year-old jelly, peach jam, or whatever the fuck, from the jars. That's what Zero lived off of when he was hiding under the Mary Lou, the boat.
I forgot about the jam. I would literally just remembered the onions. Because
I know that movie word for word.
When I was in middle school, we did a stage version of Holes, and I played Mr. Pendanski.
So good.
And I got hit in the face with a shovel for real.
Jesus Christ.
Middle schoolers shouldn't do fight choreography. I'm sorry. However, the one thing that I think middle schoolers were uniquely qualified to do in this show and enthusiastic about was just straight up eat raw onions.
Yeah.
Like those guys, I don't even honestly remember who they were, which I feel bad about.
I don't remember people, like, I don't remember people.
That's okay.
Like, from my past, like, we went to school together for years. I could not tell you, like, 85% of the people I graduated with.
That's so okay. I don't remember these people's names necessarily, but I do remember and respect their commitment to, like, no, we're not going to just, like, put an apple in onion skins, which I think would be, like, the normal thing to do if you're going to take a bite out of it on stage. We're going to just chomp on some onions. We are committed to it because we are gross little middle school boys.
Yeah.
And I respect the hell out of that.
That is what we should be. That's what boys will be boys means.
Eating raw onions.
Eating raw onions.
Here's the thing, though. Idea, Bloody Mary, throw a little onion ring around that straw.
Ooh, yeah. Oh. Yeah, actually, no, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I've seen, like, Bloody Mary recipes with, like, fried stuff. Like and then you know how there's the Caesars, like the Canadian version with clam juice, which is disgusting to me. I don't want it.
Yeah.
But there's a whole slew of people who fucking love that, and good for them, because I get it. People think I'm crazy for liking a Bloody Mary, honestly. And that's fine. More for me. So for them, great. Follow your dreams. But with a Caesar, I've seen people put like fried shrimp around the side, or like even just like shrimp cocktail, but like with a Bloody Mary. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
It's weird. But
more for you.
More for you.
No, not me. You.
No, I don't want the clam seafood one. I'd say more for you as in the Canadians. I don't want any part of that.
Fair enough.
There's a lot of shit from Canada that I'm like, yeah, I'll fuck with that, and that is not one of them.
That's so fair.
I will take all dressed chips, but I refuse the Caesar. Thank you.
More Caesars for you, Canada.
Oh no.
What?
Oh yeah, so pets.
We've only been recording for 40 minutes.
So, having pets can seem like a daunting task when you have the ADHD.
This is true. However, I did do a little bit of research, and by research I mean I Googled it half an hour before this, and there are some studies saying that having pets can actually help with your ADHD.
Yeah, yes. And it's actually not... It's interesting that you think it might be difficult, but it actually is like the nature of pets to be helpful for ADHD sometimes. Like maybe, like I think maybe fish is like fish and lizards, like things that you put in a tank and can potentially forget about. It gets on that line with like plants for me.
Yeah.
And not, because it's not that I don't care about them. Like, I love betas,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never personally gotten a beta
Mm-hmm.
because I know I can't really remember to take care of it well.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get a beta tank, I fully expect that it will be like plants that I buy, that Jordan just takes care of them,
Mm-hmm.
and I get to show them my love and appreciation when I remember that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Love you, bro.
We'll work our way up. Once we can take care of a fern, then we can get a beta fish.
Yeah, exactly. So we probably won't get a beta fish for a while, and but that said, we're more qualified to speak on cats and dogs.
Yes.
The bread and butter of pets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those basic boys that you know, I feel like I don't know what the statistic is. I could have looked this up beforehand, but I'm assuming there's a fair amount of people who grow up with a cat or a dog, or multiple, or both.
Cat and or dog and or cats and or dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's very American Dream-esque.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have a wife, 2.5 kids, and a dog with your white picket fence sort of situation. Like, there's always, like, a golden retriever or a Labrador kind of. And now, I guess the 2023 version is, like, some version of a doodle, like, is in the front yard.
The Andersonville version of that is, like, you move out of your Boys Town apartment, and with your boyfriend, you get a dog together, and it's your baby.
Mm-hmm.
Wear sweaters.
That you shopped locally from Andersonville.
Uh-huh.
We actually saw several booths that had, like, pet clothes.
They were very cute.
At the craft fair.
They were very cute, and it was very tempting to stop in.
Yeah, but it was also like, shit, we need to rein... Like, we had to be so judicious.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it was also, it seemed like in our cursory glances, largely dog-oriented.
True. That too.
Which, with clothes, is difficult, because sometimes it's fine, but sometimes, like, it's harder to use, like, a dog harness for a cat because, like, their bone structure is different and they can get out of it differently. It has to be differently structured versus, like, I think Louis' sweater is technically a dog sweater because people don't make cat clothes as much.
No, but, like, cat clothes, it's just it's like 4 holes. And they are in roughly the same place as dogs. So if you get, like, an extra small, it usually works.
Yeah, stakes are a little bit lower for, like, fashion.
Yeah, sweater,
purposes. Yeah.
coat, little raincoat. Oh, we need to get Pete a raincoat once she gets fully ready to do the harness shit.
I think one of the pet stores nearby has little, like, animal-sized Cubs jerseys.
Oh my god.
I want to get one for Louis so bad.
Oh my god.
I know.
Oh, I want to put Pete in one. She's so... Like, the thing with... Okay, so, I guess, yeah, before we start talking too much about pets, we are definitely speaking from a lot of experience.
Yes.
Because we have 4 cats who, if you haven't tuned in before, their names are in order of age. And their names are Ned, Root Beer, Aluminum Foil,
Louis for short.
and Pete Wentz.
Pete Wentz, Pete Seeger, Pete Davidson, Brown.
Yeah. Her name is a little Pete.
Yeah.
It's Pete.
Yeah.
When it comes to, like, what we call her, she's Pete or Petey or Peep.
Yeah. Petey Pete.
But when people are like, so Pete, what's that short for? And when you actually look at her little animal certificate thing that I had, like, all her paperwork with the vet, her name is Pete Wentz. Which was also wild because we did have some people at the art fair, the craft fair, I mean, ask what the names were of all 4 of our cats because they were excited that we have 4 cats. And
very sweet.
And the delight on their face with each passing name was embarrassing for me because I was like, yeah, no, I know we did a really good job naming these cats. I need to try and be, like, humble and look like I'm surprised that they think it's funny. And I need to pretend that I don't get this reaction every goddamn time.
But
and
it is still very affirming.
Yeah, I was saying, I need to pretend that I'm not eating that shit up. Especially because we get to, like, it just gets more absurd as they get younger.
As they get younger?
Like, as they, like,
oh, I see.
in order.
I see. I was like, that's not...
Because, like, Ned is like, ah ha ha, funny. It's a human name. And, like, sometimes, you know, it's just, like, it's the classic comedy of just a simple one-syllable man's name. Like, traditionally men's name, right? Just, like, a Bob.
Fred.
Yeah, a Fred. Oh, Fred's a great cat name. George.
Yeah,
like,
that's a good cat name. No cat named George.
Same.
Quality cat.
Yes, same. So, it's
sorry, I was like, oh yeah, and then my next thought was Ben, and then I was like, that was Louie's name.
That was
like,
Louie's
there's
name.
very much a reason that that's not Louie's name anymore because I work with 2 human Bens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of which is the person with the cat named George. So
yeah. Oh, right, yeah. So, but like, it's like, haha,
yeah, it
funny
gets...
human name, and then it's like, oh, a food name, and then it's like, oh, that's just an inanimate object. Aluminum foil, that's ridiculous. Oh, Lou for short. Oh, okay, it's kind of cute, and
it's kind of I like to think it's kind of a sleeper name because Lou is a pretty normal.
Oh yeah,
name Louie. It's easy to say, and then just hit him with it's short for aluminum foil, and people have to think through the word aluminum foil. I have to pretend I don't eat that shit up.
Exactly. And then the fucking home run whopper that is, this is my cat, Pete Wentz.
Her name, it's like this girl cat.
This is the little, and she's tiny.
What?
She is 8 pounds.
She's so little.
And she's not a kitten, okay? Like, people keep thinking, when I post pictures of her, like in a Discord that I'm a part of, people keep thinking that she's a bebe. That she's a little baby cat. And no, she is like 1.5 years old, and she might grow a little bit more. She might fill out a little bit more. But, like, she's just fucking tiny.
And she is full to the brim of trouble.
She is the devil incarnate, is what she is.
You know what she is? As I have said and will say again, appropriately, she is both young and a menace.
Yeah.
So.
Literally, the amount of times, like, I'm sure it sounds kind of horrifying to, like, our neighbors if they didn't know that it's, like, a cat. Because when I, like, am yelling at her, it's usually like, Pete! Like, Pete! And so it sounds like there's, like, some little kid who lives with us named Peter who I'm like, Pete, get over here, boy!
Pete, are you throwing up again?
Pete, stop throwing up.
Stop eating my goddamn palm tree, Pete!
Pete, slow the fuck down. You don't need to eat your food in one fucking gasp. Like,
Pete, we're never feeding you again.
Like, clearly, Pete, you are never, ever gonna be given any food, and we starve you. Like, oh my god.
Well, and that's, I will say.
Sorry,
I'll take a drinky.
I'm having a time with my body right now. Okay.
I will say, in Pete's defense, that is one of the things that makes having cats great for ADHD.
Yes.
They will remind you to feed them.
Yes. Yes, yeah, point A.
They will remind you when their water bowl is empty. They will remind you. You will know when they want to play. They will start biting your feet. They are, if you learn how to listen, sometimes if you don't, sometimes they do just straight up yell. But
the longer you live with an animal, if you haven't lived with an animal, the more you start to understand their body language, and what it means.
Thank you.
Is, like, I mean, to be sure, like, or, I don't know, sorry. That was a tough one. Whew! I've never actually, like, seen a speech therapist about my stutter, but I do think about it sometimes, where I'm like, was no one like, wow, this kid literally says like and every other word and stutters when they try to speak, like, one clean sentence? Maybe we should get that checked out? No. Fuck her. She gets good grades, so she's fine, right? Just gonna note that one for therapy next week. But wait, what was I saying? Is that a point? Oh no.
The longer you live with cats.
Oh yeah. Pets. Yeah, the more you understand how they're trying to communicate with you. But also the nice thing about cats and dogs is that if you are not giving them their basic needs, they will yell. They will meow, they will bark, they will let you know.
Sometimes they even let you know sharply.
Yeah, cats. Cats do like to, like, I mean, I guess, yeah, some dogs bite. But that's like, a dog biting is a lot bigger of a problem than a cat biting, honestly.
I mean, dogs their claws aren't as sharp, but, like...
Well, but a dog can, like, severely hurt you like in a muscular bone way. Because their jaws are huge and strong, depending on the kind of dog.
I just mean like if a dog paws at you, its nails can still scratch you.
Yes, I think the thing I'm thinking about is that dogs...
Yeah, if a dog bites you, that's generally frowned upon.
Yeah, but also if it gets to a point where the dog needs to bite you to remind you to let it out, then maybe you should rethink pet ownership.
That's also
the
fair.
Other thing is something is that like ADHD or not, pet ownership is not for everybody.
That's true. It is a serious commitment.
Mm-hmm.
It's, if you're interested in getting a pet and you have ADHD, definitely something to research and think about and not do spontaneously. Mm-mm. I say as a person who just went to the pound with you for moral support 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But...
fucking started weeping. Saw this little old man looking orange cat. Little orange and white boy.
He just won't be held.
He looked so sad and so old and sick looking. And they thought he was a senior cat because he was just so sick. And so sad and so worn out. And then we take him to the vet after bringing him home because, of course, you start weeping. And so it's like, okay, we're not leaving this cat here. Well, especially because I don't know if we've probably talked about this several times on the podcast, but it bears repeating because I think it's like really like, it just makes me grateful that we saved them basically. Mm-hmm. And they could have been lying, but like they gave us these cats for free. So I don't think that they were.
Yeah.
But Root Beer was 5 months old. So she was just a tiny little kitten. Mm-hmm. And Ned was actually only 3, like 2.5, 3 years old. But they thought he was like 7 or 8. Mm-hmm. Because he was just in real bad shape and just really sad.
Well, the thing is, too, I think about like, we got them, 4.5 years ago. Ned was 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. So he's, 6 or 7, almost the age they thought he was then. And he looks better and healthier and more active than what they thought he would look like as a 7.
Yeah, no, he's a robust, beefy boy, and I love him. But essentially, both of them had caught like the cat version of kennel cough, and because of that, they were going to be moved down into the infirmary. And because they were this was at Chicago Animal Care and Control, so it wasn't like a regular like shelter or pound. It was like the public one with the city. And essentially, they were going to get taken down to the infirmary where, like, all of the cats with feline leukemia and stuff were. Mm-hmm. And so once they got taken down there, there's really no chance of them getting adopted. And so they would be euthanized. And so they told us that. And then they also said that they would waive the adoption fee completely. And so we just got 2 free cats.
Yeah.
And I like to think that it just worked out really well.
Yeah.
Because they're our bebés.
Yeah.
And then recently, I wanted to get a 3rd cat. Well, no, I wanted to get a dog. Because I saw a dog that I was really interested in, and it was really cute, and it was, like, got along with cats, and, like, I was like, this could be good for us. I could do a lot of good with a dog, because a dog needs a little bit more intensive work, I would say, than a cat. I think that's fair to say. You gotta take it outside, you gotta, like, a dog is just naturally a little bit more inclined to be, like, interested in doing all the same things as the people versus like cats will often just want to like hang out with you while you're doing something. Yeah.
Well, and that's one thing that 2 things that they say are like one of the perks of dogs for people with ADHD is one, like as much as I hate to admit it, there is some decent science behind like exercise and ADHD and like having a dog that you need to take out and walk is good to get you to exercise, kind of makes it a necessity. And also like,
not that you should get a dog just to exercise.
Yes, no, good, yes, fair.
But again, I feel like we're just going to be adding in these caveats as we go, as we think of them. So thanks for bearing with us as we remember certain things that we probably like, oh yeah, we should probably say that.
Yes. And also, when you're talking about ADHD and like rejection sensitive dysphoria or like the kind of bullying that ADHD or kind of a lot of neurodivergence receives, that a lot of people talk about, that it can be a big like self-esteem boost to have a pet that gives you this kind of unconditional love and interest, and especially with dogs, like you said, interest in what you're doing and excitement, which you sometimes don't get from people. Like, you're never going to feel like a dog or a cat is never going to be like, oh, you're too much. Or, yeah.
Yeah, a cat may think you're annoying, but they can't say it.
And they're also going to annoy you back in the same. It's not ever a personal flaw.
Mm-hmm.
If you're annoying a cat, it's just I was trying to curl up and do a little bun here, and I can't do that now. I'll forget this in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Because I have a tiny little peanut brain.
Mm-hmm. But sorry, you were saying something else about dogs, and I completely...
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, I feel like dogs, well, and cats, that. I think the thing with pets is that, you get this sensory experience.
Yeah.
When you're interacting with an animal versus, interacting with another human or interacting with, inanimate objects.
Mm-hmm.
And that, it's a living, breathing thing. And, there's science behind the fact that physical touch, even with, an animal... and petting an animal is a huge mood booster. That shit gets your dopamine fucking going.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. As a physical touch love language bitch, if I did not have cats, I would just shrivel up like a raisin and die.
Because I'm, not physical touch necessarily.
But you're not really.
But I'm not really.
And that's fine.
I grew up in a family full of physical touch people, and so I'm, used to it and know how to handle it, but I don't ever remember to, initiate it on my own. And so, it's very good for Jordan in this friendship that we have several cats, all of whom like to snuggle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, most of whom. I don't know if... Ned doesn't love to snuggle.
He doesn't love to snuggle, but he loves to sit on a blanket on the same bed as you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think I count that as, he wants to be close and snuggled up near us.
I count it as affection. I don't think I count it as physical touch.
That's fair. Especially when you've got,
because it's literally not.
Yeah, I guess. But, well, I don't know, when he, lays between your legs. Oh, I guess he does that more with me.
Yeah.
Where, I'll sit and have my legs straight out, and then Ned will just, nestle between them, because my legs are like a fucking Instapot. The level of heat that I produce.
Yeah, I just don't sit like that often. Sometimes, if I'm sitting with my feet on the floor, he'll lay on my lap, or, if I'm sitting with my legs crossed, sometimes. But, I think he doesn't do that as much as,
Yeah, it's hard because, I think before we got Louie, the scale of who's affectionate to who's not affectionate, there was a much more even playing field. So I do feel like Louie is an outlier and should not be counted.
That's fair,
because
but
that
also...
boy loves to be literally in near constant physical contact with anybody, but specifically Jordan. It is it's so cute. And when Jordan goes to rehearsal, he will come and find me. So if I'm the only one home, he will find me instead, because he just wants to be held. He wants to be warm. He wants to be where his people are. And he genuinely, he loves to he'll put his, because he only has 3 legs, so he'll put his one front paw up on your shoulder or your chest, because he wants to be hugged and held. I'm not kidding. He literally
loves hugs.
This cat is literally like an angel. We've looked into potentially what it would take to license him as a genuine therapy cat that we could potentially take to hospitals and shit, because you can kind of just do whatever with him, and he'll take almost anything as long as it's comfortable, cozy touch. He's not gonna sit around forever if you're trying to clip his nails or clean his ears or brush his teeth, but
even when you're trying to do that,
he still takes it.
He won't hiss or
never
try and scratch you or bite you. No. He'll try and get away. We had to clean his ears pretty regularly there for a hot minute. And that was the saddest shit in the world.
Poor baby
boy. Because he would just, cry.
And, it got to a point where it was, it would take 2 of us at first, and for a little bit there off and on, where, we'd literally have to swaddle him up in a towel, and I would be holding him, and Jordan would be cleaning his ears, and he would try so hard to, accordion his neck into so that he could try and bury himself back into the swaddle.
It was sad.
So sad. It was the worst.
And when he cries, he sounds like a seagull.
Yeah, he literally so Louie is a very special boy. Yeah. I feel like this is less an episode about hey, pets can be really helpful if you have ADHD, and a little bit more of like, what's an excuse for us to just talk a fuck ton about our cats?
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that because it's our podcast and you're like allowed to stop listening or reading whenever you want.
But also, if you want to send us pictures of your pets, if you want to tell us about your pets,
please,
that number that you can call to talk about your dopamine trampoline, it's still up, it's still going. We'll read it again. If your dopamine trampoline is your pets, we'd love to hear that shit.
Would you like to explain Louie's history?
Yeah. So Louie is a rescue.
They're all rescues.
Yeah, they're all rescues. But Louie was rescued by an organization called Good World Animal Rescue. They mostly adopt and treat and take care of and home dogs, but they do some other pets, including cats, as you probably guessed, and
like rabbits.
They did some rabbits, and I'm pretty sure that they've helped and treated, at least, and maybe rehomed to like zoos, a couple of bears.
Oh yeah, because that would make sense regionally.
Because they are based in Azerbaijan. And
like the country.
Yes, the country, Azerbaijan.
I say that just because, respectfully, a lot of our audience members are from the United States, and our geography education in this country is dog shit, so I know for a fact that there's at least one of you who had no idea that Azerbaijan even existed, and that's okay. The education system has failed you. It is not your fault, but you can change it.
Here you are. Now you know.
I'm sorry. I'm really passionate about geography.
You are very passionate about geography and geography education.
So Azerbaijan.
Yes.
It's a small country that was formerly a part of Russia during like the Soviet Union. It's right by Georgia and Armenia, which is like in between like Turkey and Russia. Like, it's around that area. Okay.
Thank you, Lex.
This has been Geography with Lex.
Woo. You said Georgia, now I want Hachipuri.
That place, Diplomat, is literally, I walk by it almost every day.
Yeah, well, and Oda, that's up on Clark, has some now, too.
Oda's so good.
I've literally only had the Hachipuri, but it is really good. God, maybe that should be my dopamine trampoline this episode.
Hachipuri?
Yeah.
Haven't you talked about it before?
Maybe.
We really need to,
we need to make a list.
We need to make a list, because this is getting out of hand.
We'll spell that in the episode notes so that you can Google it, and I'll figure out if I can talk about it. Maybe next episode.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Louis was rescued from Azerbaijan and treated by their medical staff there. They found him with his leg already in bad shape.
Yeah,
and so
I was gonna say, TW. Our poor boy is a tripod, which means he did encounter some harrowing circumstances.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go into more detail than that.
Yeah. I was like, oh, wait.
No, that's so fair. And I will say, they're a wonderful organization, and if you're interested in adopting an animal from them, highly recommend. However, their Instagram is very graphic. It is very graphic.
Yeah.
So,
because kind of one of the main things that they do, and one of the main reasons that they rescue animals from Azerbaijan, is because as a country, it's not it's not a very safe or good place for animals to be.
There's a lot of like dog fighting and kind of general mistreatment. But anyways,
and also just like a lot of strays.
Yeah.
Because of the whole, like, there's just a lot. So
yes.
So he had 3 legs.
And they cleaned him up and they treated him and sent him over here on a plane. He's got a little pet passport.
A little well-traveled boy.
Yeah. And I am a sad little sap, so when Lex was like, looking into getting another cat, I was like, let me help. And of course, I get on Pet Finder, and I select special needs pets, and I sort by who's been on there the longest, which is not good for my mental health. But we found Louie.
Net positive.
Net absolute positive. He is such a sweet boy.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a little cheeseburger face.
He's got
and
such a little cheeseburger face.
Literally, because we kept him just in my room, apart from the other cats when we first got him, so that they could smell each other and get used to each other and all that jazz.
Yeah.
And literally the first night we brought him home, when we got Ned, for comparison, he immediately, jumped out of his cardboard box and ran and, smelled around the house until he found my closet and hid in there for 3 days straight, which is fair. He's gone through a lot. I'm sure that it's not fun to hang out at Chicago Animal Care and Control. Cats take time to adjust to their new spaces. But Louie...
Oh, and they had a long car ride, too.
They did have a long car ride.
They all had a decent car ride from each of their...
So we had to hike out to,
Well, because, CACC is, on, the southwest-ish, west-ish, a little bit south. And then Petey was being fostered on the south side. And then Lou was out in the burbs.
Yeah, out, past, an hour drive each way out of town. But anyways, in comparison to all of this, Louie, the very first night he came home, he did his hopping around, he did his smelling, he definitely hid in the carrier, and we put a little box with a hole in it for him to hang out in. But he hopped up on my bed and he laid on his back with his tummy up in between my legs and just slept the whole night through with me. The first night he was home. So he, I cannot stress this enough, loves to snug.
Well, when we went to pick him up, we were like, okay, this is something that I would advise everybody, right? I don't think that if you're wanting to adopt a pet, adopting a pet without meeting it first can be a really risky play for both you and the animal, because I think it's really important to see if you have a good match. I think it's a little different for people who go out of their way to order from a litter of puppies or kittens or something, because
even
then you want to meet them, you want to meet the litter, but a lot of times breeders will select which one you get, and you kind of just go based on looks and hope for the best, and sometimes that works out great. My parents did that with their dog that they currently have, Billy. She's the sweetest little teddy bear. I love that dog so much. But that's an example of when that goes well, and it can be fine, right? But I mean, especially if you're rescuing an animal, I feel it's really important to meet them. And it's important for everyone who lives in the household to meet them. And it's tougher with cats because you have to introduce them slowly. And they almost always will not get along right away, because cats are not, they're very standoffish with one another. They're not unnaturally...
pack animals, really.
Not really. I mean, feral cat, they stick together, they have, family units and stuff, but, when it comes to cats that they don't know, cats can be very, very standoffish, and so it takes a while. It can take,
weeks,
8 months to a year for cats to become friends. Our cats, they're all four get along for the most part, but I would say that Louie and Root Beer, they clearly have developed a friendship immediately, but I feel that's just a credit to both of them being really, really sweet cats, because similar to Louie, when I first got Root Beer, at the same time that you got Ned hid in a closet for 3 days, and Root Beer immediately climbed into my lap and started shoving her head into my mouth. So Root Beer too loves to snug. She doesn't love to snug as much as Louie. It's not nearly as often.
Yeah.
But when she wants to snuggle with you, you're gonna snuggle with Root Beer. You don't really get a choice in the matter.
No,
she does not respect
18
consent.
pounds.
Yeah, she's 18 pounds and
of pure might.
Oh yeah, if you're wow, a cat that's 18 pounds, that's not good. She's really just that big. The vet has assured me multiple times that she is perfectly healthy. She is just that big, and he thinks that she's probably part Maine Coon.
Yeah. She's a big girl.
She a big girl. She was not big when we first got her, though.
But she had big paws.
She had
so
the
you
biggest
knew
paws.
She was gonna be.
I said at the shelter, I was like, she's little, but look at these paws. She's a big cat.
Mm-hmm.
And she, like, got to, like, a year and had grown quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
but, like, hit just, like, a plateau. And I was like, damn, I guess she's just gonna have freaky, goofy, big paws. And then she had a growth spurt. And all of a sudden, she and Ned realized that Ned wasn't gonna win the fights anymore. Because they love to play fight. Like, they're definitely, like... I wouldn't say that Ned and Root Beer are a bonded pair. Because I think that they'd be okay if they were separated. But they're definitely, like, a very close...
They're definitely buds.
They're buds. Like,
Yeah.
they still... Like, Ned has definitely taken all of this change the hardest, I would say. Which is unsurprising, given that when he first got here, he hid in a closet for 3 days. So change just takes a while for him. But now he definitely is at the point where he's at least understands that his new siblings can at least be used to his and to meet his ends of, like, playtime.
Yes.
Like, he can play with them.
Yes.
He's not to the point where he wants to, like, give them baths or snuggle with them the way that he does with Root Beer. Because, like, he'll curl up and sleep in a little ball next to Root Beer. And, like, they'll
snug, especially when it's cold. They definitely bathe each other.
Yeah. And so, like, I don't want to make it out to sound like Ned is just a grouchy boy who doesn't like any of that stuff. He just isn't close enough. And he doesn't he just doesn't know or trust Louie or Pete enough to get to that point, but I feel like every day we get a little closer.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, Pete and Root Beer, like, Pete is similar to Ned in personality.
Yes.
In a freakish way. They are both
so funny.
Absolute hellions. Just little assholes who have so much to say about everything. I don't know where they get it.
Both very chatty cats.
Chatty feels so, like, cute and, like, squeaky and fun versus, like, these two fuckos will just, like, meh,
they love...
meh,
okay,
meh.
let me try again.
Sorry.
Take a drink. These two cats love to scream.
They love to scream. Like, they literally sound like fucking, like, they sound like ducks sometimes. Because they just have these, like, because, you know, some cats have, that's the other fun thing about cats. And dogs, right? Like, some dogs bark differently than other breeds of dogs. And cats, though you may look at a cat and say, hey, that's just a cat. How are they different? Well, some cats have a cute little squeaky meow. Like Root Beer, I would say, has the naturally squeaky meow that's, like, higher pitched and, like, so cute. Louie has, like, a little seagull cry that I'm pretty sure was because of his injuries.
Yeah.
And, like, whatever happened to his vocal cords. Because when I was growing up, we had a cat like that who would chirp instead of being able to...
he kind of chirps and squeaks more than he meows.
Yeah, and it's so cute. But you have those types of cats, but then you have cats like Ned and Pete who have, like, these, like, fucking, like, alto cat meows. It's the only way I could think to describe it. These little mezzos, like, just with this just full-throated, like, duck quack. Like, meh, meh, meh. Like, it is the most obnoxious and cute sort of mixture. I know that we're biased, but it is, like, the cutest fucking thing to hear them both just, like, meh, 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 meh. Like, what are you saying? What are you yelling about?
Well, and they'll yell about everything, too, because I know it took us a little while to figure it out, but Ned, when he plays, especially I've noticed with Pete, because Pete just plays more, he just screams, and at first we're like, oh my god, what's wrong? What is happening? Like, do we need to stop this? But then we look over and he's, like, laying on his back with his belly out, or, like, you know, Pete will walk away and he'll get up and go, you know, play
Pounce
with her
and like,
instigate it. And so it's like, oh, you're having a good time, you're fine, this is consensual, it's just
you're just yelling.
Yep.
I love them so much.
So, yeah, that's a great ADHD feature. You never forget about them.
You will never. They won't let you.
Nope. And that's, I feel like I know some people who will take their meds when they feed their cats. So if they forget, it's kind of all rolled into the one, and their cat will come yell at them to...
And then you get that associated with your meds. Oh, that's genius.
Right?
Pavlov.
Yeah. And I know, like, in a more direct relationship, too, there have been studies about, like, how, like, therapy dogs for kids with ADHD, like, working with them in a certain way can actually, like, minimize ADHD symptoms. And some of that is... Actually, I didn't pay attention enough to that study to quote it helpfully here, but it exists.
It exists, and also, I mean, thesis statement, dog good. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Dog good.
This has been Orler and Parkour. No, but that really is the thesis statement. Again, if you want to tell us about and or show us pictures of your pets, send those photos, tag us in them on Instagram, call in to our dopamine trampoline number and leave a message. We would love to hear that. We love our pets, but we also love other people's pets. So
yeah, we are not discriminatory here. If you've got a turtle, you got some fish, just show us your pets.
Yes. I used to have a turtle.
There they are.
It's
haunting. It was Pete, probably.
Sounds small, yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we bounce on over to the dopamine trampoline?
I was to say, you mentioned the dopamine trampoline. Oh my god.
I feel like it's just on brand for this episode to have that in.
See the shadows under the door?
Jeez.
They're everywhere. We're surrounded. Sometimes it does feel like that, like when we're putting food in their bowls and you have 4 little predators just screeching at you. And, like, oh my god. Like,
it's very sweet, but it's very haunting because Louie and Pete have learned and joined Ned and Root Beer, who will hear people coming up the stairs and wait by the door.
This is less cute to me because it's the bane of my existence. Just trying to make sure these cats don't fucking escape.
I feel like they talk big game, but
yeah, as soon as they ran out onto the out onto the landing, they'd get so fluffed up. They'd get so freaked out. That's true.
But they do usually. There is always at least 2 of them by the door when we get home. Often more. But I'm derailing us from heading over to the dopamine trampoline.
Yeah, so the dopamine trampoline is a place where we go to talk about things that are giving us dopamine or used to give us dopamine that we wanted to share and talk about. It's, or sometimes just like a passing fancy. Welcome. Let's bounce on up.
Let's do it.
We called it the dopamine trampoline because it rhymes. I don't really have any other reason for you, so.
Yeah, it's just a catchy name.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Well, yeah, so I, last episode, tried to do a DT. Last episode, there were 4 of us.
There sure were.
It was very chaotic. We didn't get through any of the topics that we meant to talk about at all, with any sort of conclusion. We didn't really get to... I don't think all of us even talked about our DTs in full. I think we all got derailed and moved on to the next one.
I for sure don't even remember what I said.
Yeah, well, so I suggested to Jordan, and Jordan thought it was funny, so that was that I try, instead of a DT, a re-T.
Ah, yes.
Because my dopamine trampoline last episode was the myth, the man, the fucking legend, Pete Seeger. And in hindsight, a bold move to try and do that on an episode with 4 people where we're trying to cram 4 DTs in. I should have kept that shit reserved for something less consequential. Because...
he deserves more time.
He deserves more time. And because, if you have tuned in before, you know that we love to yell about unions and communism and other such things. So, Pete Seeger.
Tell us more about Pete Seeger.
So Pete Seeger was an American folk singer who was born in 1919 in California. Though
Nice.
He is more known for spending most of his life on the Hudson River in New York, I think. So I mean, California, New York, you both win this one.
As a California-born person, I'm filled with cheer at that.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm happy for you. So Pete Seeger is most well known as the man who brought the banjo into the mainstream, is essentially the most reductive way to look at Pete Seeger. He was born in 1919, and so he grew up through the Great Depression, and was the son of musicians and artists. And so he grew up learning how to play music and sing and all these other things, but when he was like 15 or 16, he went to a festival, which if you're familiar with like troubadour shows and like festivals like that would happen in the Great Depression because it was like the low budget thing to do to have fun. He went to like a folk music version of one of those types of festivals, and he saw a folk band playing together, and he saw the banjo, and he was so taken by that instrument, he decided to pick it up, play it, and he ended up like basically doing that for the rest of his goddamn life. Pete Seeger is one of those kind of like mythical Americana type figures in that like if he hadn't just died as recently as 2014, it feels like he's almost unreal and how central he was to like the folk revival, but also to like activism in America.
A ton of the social movements.
Yes. So like his presence as a okay, so basically he was so taken by folk music and the American history of folk music, but also particularly with the fact that the banjo was not just an instrument used in like what we think of as like hillbilly times in like rural Appalachia, because it was used in that way, but the banjo was actually based on, it was originally an African instrument, and so the banjo was really popularized by people who were enslaved originally, and then passed through the North, right, as abolition became more of a thing, and throughout the years, essentially the banjo is deeply tied to the Black community. There's some problematic things about the banjo in like the late 1800s. The banjo was most popularly used in like minstrel shows, right, where white men would don blackface and play the banjo because the banjo was like the Black people instrument essentially. And so there was a lot of problematic shit there. And so Pete Seeger helped to reform essentially the image of the banjo into an instrument of the people, essentially, and that like white or Black, whether you're a white person in rural Appalachia or you're a Black person in the South, this instrument is easy to play, easy to sing along with, and can make some really, really like or has been used to make some really great empowering music. The banjo was really formative in bringing spirituals, like, which like this is also I feel like a classic American tale in that like the white man is the one who popularized the Black instrument in mainstream, like in the like he's the one who's credited for it. But to Pete, like in Pete Seeger's defense, the man did everything he fucking could to uplift people of color and poor people and pretty much anybody who was disenfranchised by the government, big business, and systemic problems like racism. Like he was very
directly too.
Very directly. Like his song Talking Union literally has a line that says, "And if you don't let the race hatred break you up, you'll win." And that's a great song. Well, that's just one of many great lines that comes from that one. But essentially, this man was well known for bringing folk music into the mainstream, but also, like I said, protest music, activism. He was a very, essentially, the thing, okay, I guess Jordan called Pete Seeger my patron saint the other day, which I felt like was actually like the perfect word for it, because there are some things about Pete Seeger's life and biography that just really resonate with me. And one of them is that he grew up in a really rural, conservative area but did not espouse any of those views and felt very trapped until he started traveling. And when he was in college, he wanted to study sociology. And for friends of the show, you know that I got my master's in anthropology with a certificate in sociology. I spent 2 goddamn years of my life focused on something that I don't use in a quote-unquote valuable way now. And essentially, Pete Seeger did that for 2 years and was quickly disillusioned with sociology as a profession because a professor told him something to the effect of, you have to understand that you cannot change the world with sociology. You can only study the world. And that was a really big frustration for me, is that I felt like in the field of anthropology and sociology, those 2 fields, it's really hard to even like feel like you're making a concrete difference in society. And so Pete Seeger had seen the power of what music could do and the way music brought people together, especially in like spirituals. Like that was a big inspiration for him, because it was music that was used by people in a really dark time to make sure that they stayed united and to like actually communicate with one another over long distances, because a song, like the lyrics of a song, can get passed around. And like essentially Pete Seeger was so confident in the power of music to change the world that he dedicated his entire life to proving that point. And I'd say he did it fucking damn well.
He did.
Because I feel like it's really hard to say that music doesn't impact things. It's kind of impossible to say that music doesn't impact things, because this, essentially, whether it was for unions, for basic civil liberties, for, like, even at the ripe old age of 90... Actually, I don't know how old he was, but he was either in his late 80s or early 90s. This man was still protesting. He was protesting at Occupy Wall Street in 2011. Like, this man spent his entire fucking life. Like, he once got arrested for blocking a bridge because he was protesting in support of a young black teenage girl who had been assaulted by a white man. And essentially, she was discredited and not believed. And so Pete Seeger was like, well, fuck that. And he would bring his banjo to protests and he would sing songs. And I guess like there was one rule at a Pete Seeger concert, and that was that you have to sing along. Especially because he said apparently in a couple of interviews in his later years, he's like, my voice is pretty much gone, so you have to sing along or else this concert's not happening. Like things to that effect. Of,
I do
like,
appreciate when artists specifically are like, please sing along. Like, it makes me feel very useful.
Yes, exactly. Well, and essentially, like, Pete Seeger was this man who, I mean, there was a brief period in, like, the 50s and 60s where he was blacklisted from public, like, national radio because he was openly communist. So during, like, the McCarthyism sort of bullshit, he was not a friend to the American government and the American government's eyes. But the thing is about Pete Seeger is that, he also was a contemporary of, like, Bob Dylan, Woody Guthrie. You know, him and Woody Guthrie were apparently really good friends, and so Woody Guthrie, you know, how he painted This Machine Kills Fascists on his guitar. Pete Seeger had a gentler, more affable sort of version of that, which was...
But also incredibly powerful.
Incredibly powerful. This man had on his banjo, this machine surrounds hate and forces it to surrender. And so... Oh,
that, like, it gives me goosebumps every time.
Same. And it's just like, yes, Woody Guthrie was in your face. He had a lot of big opinions, like, and, you know, people talk about, like, This Land Is Your Land as being like, that's a white anthem if there ever was one. But when you actually look at the original lyrics of This Land Is Your Land, there was, like, 2 whole verses about how private property is bullshit and the bane of human existence. And, like, it's keeping us from being able to live communally. And, well, so, anyways, he was contemporaries with a bunch of fucking hippies. He was one of the OG hippies, is sort of the, like, you know, the thesis statement there. And he was just like that his whole life. And people talk about the fact that he was good at banjo, he was good at singing, but he was so good at working a crowd. And that, like, and not in a manipulative way, just in a, like, he was just that charming, that kind, that earnest.
That committed to community. And
that committed to, like, he actually believed what he was selling, right? Yeah. In essence. And so, like, he was just, like, it's kind of like Dolly Parton, right? Where, like, no matter what your political beliefs are, it's really hard to find a reason to dislike Dolly Parton. And that was the same thing with Pete Seeger. Like, he was openly a communist, but you can't be upset about the things that he's saying because he's framing them in such a kind, human way that, like, one of my favorite quotes that I just learned about that I just told you about was he said once, "Be wary of great leaders. Instead, hope that there are many, many small leaders." And, like, just like the wisdom of that, like, what is an ocean but many drops, right? Like, that idea of, like, literally everything makes a difference. Everything you do can make a difference.
It's very, like, reminds me of the Mr. Rogers, like, look for the helpers.
Yes.
You can't find one, be one kind of. Like, it's all up to us being kind to each other.
Yes, but the thing is that he wasn't precious about it either, right? Like, he had this message of, like, hope and kindness and love, but it was also, like, but if you're gonna be a bitch, you're going to hell. Like, he literally does have a song that he wrote called Casey Jones, the Union Scab.
It's my favorite one.
It's so good. It's very jaunty, very very jovial.
It is.
Very
it's
upbeat.
Very fun.
And there's, like, a little background singer.
There's a train
there's
whistle
some train
in
whistling.
there.
Yeah. And it's about a man who scabs.
Casey Jones.
And if you're unfamiliar with what scabbing means, Jordan. Yeah. I don't want to like, let's go to Jordan's Union Corner. So, Jordan, tell us about scabbing.
Scabbing is when a union has authorized a strike, the people are striking, they are not working, they're picketing, and scabbing is when you cross a picket line to temporarily take the place of the workers who are on strike. It
famously,
is a bitch thing to do.
Yeah.
Don't do it, because as Pete Seeger very wonderfully and clearly lays out in this song, if you scab, you go to hell.
You go straight to hell.
That's literally the plot of the song.
Casey, there's a whole line. There's a line that says, Casey Jones went to hell a-flying. It's not metaphorical.
No,
he goes
not at
to
all.
Hell.
And I think it's an important lesson, too, because he dies scabbing.
Yes.
Because the people...
Sorry, is the song Casey Jones your dopamine trampoline?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No. That was not a, like, you can't do... That was a, like... Well, let's just make a day of it.
No, that's my favorite Pete Seeger song.
Well, it's multi-layered. He dies while scabbing. He goes to heaven and he scabs on the angels.
But the angels are unionized, so they get together and are like, nuh-uh.
And so they send him to hell. So
and the devil's like, the literal line is, okay, get to shoveling sulfur. It's what you get for scabbing.
Yep.
It's so good.
It's so good. And it's just so bouncy and funny, like, that you don't think that it's gonna get that dark that fast.
He breaks his spine at, like, the second verse.
The second verse is a broke his blooming spine. Like, there's a... Oh, my gosh. So yeah, there's a...
Sorry for commandeering this.
No, please. It is so fucking funny. We have sang that song with all the windows down in my car, and I know that there have been pedestrians walking by who don't have headphones for some weird reason. I don't know how they live life like that, but good for them. But when I see them sort of just, look just a little bit, like, not want to look too directly, because, you don't want to be rude or weird, but who the fuck are these bitches? Just screaming union propaganda in the streets. Like, yes, this is Chicago.
Which means that we also get a number of, like, nods.
We get a number of, like, a little smile while they're walking. I remember I was driving behind, like, a real old person like a real old person, so I was like, oh, you fucking grew up on this music, probably. Like, and I remember them looking in the rearview mirror and, like, kind of grooving a little bit when I was like, yes, this is the best.
Oh, that's delightful.
Because I've been listening to a lot of Pete Seeger on my commutes to and from work, because I do still have to drive to work. We're working on it, and I really don't want this to be my commute, but it's the fastest and most efficient way to get to work. It's just brings out the worst in me. So I've been trying to utilize my patron saint, so to speak, to think in a more kind and communal way. But that said, instead of blasting, like, whatever music I normally blast, I've been just blasting bluegrass hits from the 1940s.
And you have put together a really good playlist of your favorites.
Yes, okay, so the other thing is that you're probably like, why this sudden fascination with Pete Seeger? Because it has been sudden, I would say. But I decided I wanted to learn how to play the banjo a couple months ago. And I think I explained this last episode, but it bears repeating for the obvious reasons. Like, presumably if you're listening to this podcast or reading or partaking in this at all, you probably forgot what I talked about last time. So, I am learning how to play the banjo, and it's exciting and fun. And so one of the things I did in preparation was listen to and read about the history of the banjo and listen to a lot of the great banjo artists of the modern era. And Pete Seeger is kind of lauded as the number one. And so I started there and haven't really gotten anywhere else. I mean, that's not true. I listen to bluegrass music, like, outside of that. Just, like, there's a reason I wanted to play the banjo in the first place, right? It's because, like, I'm into bluegrass, and I wanted to connect to my Appalachian roots. And so, like, whatever. It's fun and all of that. But it also has been, like, a very, like, I cannot wait for, like, I hope that there's nothing that we need to protest anytime soon. But I can't wait to, like, bring my banjo to a protest because I would love to just play all of these songs of solidarity. Like the song, that's the other thing, is his most well-known songs are songs like Turn, 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 Where Have All the Flowers Gone, We Shall Overcome, which, like, that was a spiritual that the spiritual is We Will Overcome, and he changed it to We Shall Overcome, because musically, when you're singing, it is easier to open up the mouth and get a louder sound out with the word shall than will. And so...
Love those wide vowels.
And, yeah, I don't know. Just, it's very cool that this man spent his entire career highlighting what he believed to be the actual heart and soul of America. And he believed in a country that is better than, I would say, what we have. You know what I mean? But he also, he helped us all put it in context of, like, yeah, this is an ideal, this is a dream, but it is possible. Yeah. It is possible to inch by inch, step by step, incremental change is possible, and it's happening, and it's constantly happening. So, like, take heart, because we are all in this together. Pete Seeger walked so High School Musical could run.
I mean, I think Pete Seeger was running as well.
Yes.
But High School Musical's running alongside.
I just realized, like, we're all in this together. I was like,
yeah.
But that said, my DT is, my re-T is a more full, comprehensive look at Pete Seeger. Oh, one more thing that I just think is a fun fact. I was a youngin' in 2008 when former President Barack Obama was inaugurated. And my parents were deeply conservative, so I didn't pay attention and didn't watch. But apparently, Pete Seeger, Bruce Springsteen, and then Pete Seeger's son performed at the inauguration. And they sang This Land Is Your Land, but they added the verses that Woody Guthrie originally wrote. They added them back in. So they did not play the radio version. They added back in these fucking lefty communist policies and sang it at the fucking president's inauguration. Like, this man in 2008, in his fucking, like, 80s or whatever, was like, yeah.
That's so dope.
Yeah. And apparently when he was at Occupy Wall Street, his kids were all really, really upset with him for protesting at such an old age. And especially with, even in 2011, like, it's drastically I would say, drastically more peaceful than protests have been as of late. But it still wasn't like a peaceful time, right? And like 2011 wasn't that long ago. We all know that protests are a risky thing. Yeah. Unfortunately. They shouldn't be. Yeah. Because we constitutionally have the right to do so. Yeah. But, you know, protests often devolve into things that suck, and that's a bummer. But essentially, his kids were really nervous and scared about him going to protest at Occupy Wall Street in 2011 because he was so frail at this point. He couldn't carry his banjo anymore. Like, he was using a cane to walk. And, like, apparently, though, ended up being really, like, so his kids were nervous. They were upset with him for protesting, but it ended up being okay because everyone was just so in awe of this, like, literal American legend. Yeah. Like, this man who had been on the radio for decades. Yeah. Who has brought songs to light that, it's... I'm fine. I just started, like, getting off track because I'm like, this man has made such an impact. But it's wild to me because, like, at Occupy Wall Street, even the cops were coming up to him and asking for his autograph, shaking his hand, thanking him for being there, and how it was such a beautiful thing to see him still, like, essentially embracing this American right that we have to protest. And, like, so there's this, so his kids ended up being, obviously, like, everything ended up being fine. And apparently Pete Seeger himself was just, like, really embarrassed and overwhelmed because of, like, all these people who, like, wanted to take pictures with him were just so happy to be, like, marching with him. Like, yeah, because it's like it's 2011. This man is somehow still alive. Like, he long outlived a lot of his contemporaries. Like, Woody Guthrie died, like, what, in the 60s? 50s? Like, he died a while back. And, like, same thing with, like, anyways. He... like, this man literally dedicated his entire life to the idea that music can change the world. And like I said earlier, I think he did a pretty fucking stellar job of it. So, Pete Seeger. Yeah. My re-tea.
Woody Guthrie died in 1967.
Okay, yeah, 60s, great.
Wow.
Yeah, no, like, it's kind of weird to think about the fact that, like, he just died in 2014. Yeah. So, that's 9 years ago? It's not even a decade ago. Yeah. Like, Pete Seeger was marching at Occupy Wall Street the year I graduated from high school. Yeah. Like, it's just very... It's been a little frustrating for me, a bittersweet sort of thing of, like, I never got into Pete Seeger until, like, recently. Like, of course I had heard those songs. Like, I sang Where Have All the Flowers Gone in choir in high school, like most of us do. Like, you know, like... I knew of Pete Seeger, but I didn't ever take the time to learn about him or learn about, like, what he had done for music. Yeah. And, like the music industry and the power that, like, you can wield with music and, like, sound and solidarity. And, like, basically the solidarity and all the people singing together, like, that's just, like...
It's a really special thing.
But again, he wasn't precious about it. Like, he was still, like... Okay, but don't be a dick. Yeah. Like, don't be a dick about it. Like, he was...
Take it easy, but take it.
Take it easy, but take it. What's your DT?
Have I talked about You Were Never in Chicago yet? I don't think I did.
No.
Okay. Well, that's not originally what I was going to do, but it feels appropriate given the rest of this episode.
Fair.
So, I'm going to tell you about a fantastic book that I read last month. It is called You Were Never in Chicago by Neil Steinberg, who is a journalist at the Chicago Sun-Times, and the book is named for a postcard. In the 50s, I want to say, there was a journalist from New York who thought it would be a good idea, for some reason, to come out here, live in Chicago for like 3 months, and then do like a deep dive expose on the city, and he panned it. He had a lot of stuff to say about Chicago, and he published this, and naturally people had a lot to say about everything he had to say, and one of the pieces of feedback that he got that was the most memorable was a postcard that on the back just said, "You were never in Chicago." Just absolutely tearing into his idea that he could get a picture of this city and what it's like to be a Chicagoan. And
in 3 months.
In 3 months. Yes, which is absurd. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where the title of the book comes from. And it is a semi-autobiographical story, interweaving of stories about what does it mean to be a Chicagoan. Yeah. So it's a mix of the author's journey. I believe he grew up in Ohio, somewhere in the more rural Midwest, moved to Evanston to go to Northwestern for a journalism degree, and then, did some other career things for a hot minute, and then moved back to the Chicago area into the city proper. So it's about his journey of moving to Chicago, becoming a Chicagoan, learning about the city through his journalism work, and kind of interweaving the history of Chicago since white people have lived here. I think it's a really well-written book, and it asks a lot of interesting questions about journalism ethics, which is not my, area of expertise, but, as a storyteller, it's just kind of really interesting because it takes this nice step back from, here's the stories we are telling, to, why and how does that affect the people we're telling stories about? How does that affect the people who are receiving that? And how do we think about the different facets of experience that people are coming into experiencing our stories with? And I think that the reason that I say that is because that is sort of the thesis statement of what does it mean to be a Chicagoan. And eventually, at the end of the book, he kind of says, I can't define that. Everybody who has an opinion on this is going to have a different definition and is going to think somebody else's definition is wrong. But part of what it means to be a Chicagoan could just be caring about it that deeply and treasuring that experience so much. And I think that felt really true to kind of the pride that people have of living here. And I always joke, the reason Chicago has such a strong community is the trauma bonding from surviving the winter.
Yeah. Really, the way that this city comes alive in the summer is...
It's magical.
It's magical and cute until you remember that it's literally because all of us barely made it through the winter alive.
It's a little feral. It's a little feral.
A little is... it's especially living here before the pandemic and seeing the difference in behavior. Or not even the difference, but just the original feral behavior has just become amplified.
Yeah. That's very fair.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's
what a place we live.
What a place we live, for sure. But just kind of saying that passion for community and that stubbornness, I think, is something that he posits can be a part of many different definitions. But I'm going to read a short paragraph from the book that I think kind of sums it up.
Yeah, hit me with it.
Maybe that's the definition. You're a Chicagoan if, wherever you are at the moment, Chicago is the place you'd like to be. I would argue that Chicago is not simply a matter of where you put your pillow, but where you place your heart, wherever you're sleeping now. This is not Chicago, one resident said, surveying the smoldering ruins of the 1871 fire and tapping his chest. Chicago is in here. Yeah.
It's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I would highly recommend the book. There's also a great section in it where he just talks about how much he fucking loves the Russian bathhouse, and I was like, my man gets it!
Yeah.
It's great.
If there's one thing we appreciate in this city, as a whole, it is a spa. It is a spa, it's a bath, anything that will warm you up. Really. I know that the Russian bathhouse specifically is a whole other experience.
No, but I think that there is something very Chicagoan about just being warm in an unavoidably sweaty way.
Yeah.
And then somebody hits you with a stick and it's nice.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Just get kind of brutalized by an old person. And you're like, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, this is what I needed. Somehow so soothing and so aggressive at the same time.
Exactly. I think that sums it up really well.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, we have, a fair amount of bathhouses in this city. Which, I feel like the fact that we have more than one big bathhouse, Like, if you're like, hey, I'm going to the bathhouse, people have to be like, oh, like King Spa or the Russian bathhouse. Like, there's a couple of different options, you know?
Yeah.
That, like, people have to, like, clarify, oh, which one?
Which is great.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I would
City.
highly recommend the book. If you live or have lived in Chicago, you will probably cry. I did. If you haven't, it's still a really interesting story about what it means to belong to a place and what it means to learn the stories and the people around you and how much that matters to do.
And maybe it'll give you, you know, some pause when you go to Shit Talk Chicago. Because if you're not here, shut the fuck up.
This has been Or Learn Parkour from Wholehearted Production Company.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, you know, wherever cool people find their podcasts.
Special thanks to Krizia Perito for our cover art design. You can find her at Petal Hop, that's Petalhop, Instagram, Twitter, and Etsy.
Thank you as well to Tom Rosenthal for our theme song, There Is a Dark Place, off of the album Keep a Private Room Behind the Shop.
You can follow us on the social medias. We are at Or Learn Parkour on Instagram. We also have a little website, wearewpc.com.
You can find links to that as well as links to our transcripts in our episode description.
You sure can. If you enjoy this podcast and want to hear more, follow, subscribe, do all that jazz. We're on YouTube now, so you can subscribe to our channel and get updates when there's new videos, which auto-post like the day after we upload an episode. It's
like
nifty.
and subscribe!
Smash that MF link!
Sorry, I thought you were done talking, and then I started talking, and I was like, oh, I'm just talking over you.
No, I appreciate the enthusiasm. If you want to start your own podcast, you can click our Buzzsprout affiliate link. You get a bunch of great stuff from Buzzsprout. We've been hosted by them for the past 3 years now. And it's been great. And you get a little bonus. We get a little bonus. Helps keep the light on. And if having your own podcast sounds like a lot of work, but you do kind of want to be on a podcast, give us a call. Leave us a message with your dopamine trampoline. And you might hear it on a future episode. That number, like everything else, is in the episode description.
You can also support the show by word of mouth. Share it with a friend, family, coworker, enemy, whomever. And if you're able, you could also give us a little boost through the Ko-Fi. You can find that in our link tree on Instagram or on our website.
Do we have an outro question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's your favorite Chicago, like the most Chicago story? It could be something that happened to you or something that you've read in the news since living here. But like, what's the most Chicago thing that, like, what's your favorite just Chicago, pure Chicago thing?
I feel like I can't say the Bat Lady.
Oh, that's what mine was going to be. We could just say both of us. Oh my god. Okay, so like 2 weeks ago, this is the most Chicago thing.
So I guess I'm going to clarify and say my favorite Chicago thing is your reaction to the Bat Lady. So do you want to tell us that story real quick?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. So a couple of weeks ago, this is hot off the presses, right? Like this is a recent event. There was a woman in a neighborhood just a couple neighborhoods over from us who was, and this is not the funny part. We are not condoning this type of violence.
No. I mean, it is the funny part, but we aren't condoning that type of violence.
Yeah, like, it's funny, but, like, okay, so, anyways, this woman went around, and was attacking other women, mostly women with children and strollers and whatnot. Which is bad. But she was going around attacking these women with a baseball bat. And
That's not funny.
It's not.
That's not the funny part. The funny part was how these interactions started.
Yes. So upon reading, I read this article in Block Club, and then I asked one of my coworkers who lives in that neighborhood. We talked about that. I talked about it a little bit, and apparently my coworker has like seen this woman around, and she's not it's not that she's like I would argue if you're getting out of a car in the middle of the street, she put her car in park in the middle of the street, not off the side. She put her car in park, got out, left the door open, grabbed a bat from her car, and just ran towards these women and started hitting them with a baseball bat.
Well, she didn't just run towards them and start hitting them.
Well, yeah, so I'm giving the basic outline to explain that this woman is a menace. But apparently she's kind of a fixture in the neighborhood and maybe is not, like, so I feel bad because apparently she's not necessarily well, which I feel like is pretty obvious when you're getting out of a car swinging a bat at other people. But apparently she just really likes to start shit, so my coworker was like, that is the least surprising escalation that I've heard about this week. But apparently this woman drove around in a sedan type car, right? Like a average car, threw her car in park, had the windows down, looked over at these people, and multiple people had a similar interaction. But there was one in particular that stood out to me, so that's the one I'll explain. And that usually she would say something threatening, get out of the car, run at them with a bat, and almost all of these people thought it was like a TikTok prank or a joke, like some sort of thing, until this woman actively started hitting them with a baseball bat.
A metal baseball bat.
A metal baseball bat. So there were several people who just laughed in this woman's face before a swing came.
To be fair, I would too.
Because how do you respond when this is not confirmed that this is how she began each interaction?
But multiple people did say it.
But multiple people said it. But one particular quote was just truly the funniest fucking thing to me. That apparently this woman slams her car in park, swings the door open, looks at this woman and her sister and the stroller with her daughter in it, and she looks at these women. And she looks at these women and she says, "What would you do if I beat your ass with this bat right now?"
What would you do? To ask first?
What would you do? What would you do?
What would you do if I beat your ass with this bat?
And so the women start laughing.
Yeah.
Because, like,
that's
what?
An objectively funny opening.
So, this woman was wreaking havoc. And I should have added this at the start. No one was seriously hurt or injured.
Yes.
There were some minor injuries. But it was clear that this woman wasn't necessarily looking to, like, maim or kill anybody. Because upon reviewing some security camera footage and some footage of, like, a neighbor who just filmed it on her phone, this woman did a really bad job.
Lex had a lot to say about this woman's form.
She did a really bad job. Okay, so listen.
So I get home. No, I'm home all day. You get home from work, and you're like, I have to tell you about what happened today. And I get the feeling on this story. We have our laugh about, hey, what would you do if I beat your ass with this bat? Because that's objectively funny.
So funny.
And then literally probably 15 minutes of Lex critiquing this person's bat form because they were kind of lifting the bat over their head and swinging down instead of kind of a more proper, like, baseball or softball from the side. And apparently it really offended Lex that this person did not maim any of these people when she very well could have.
It's not that I'm mad that she didn't hurt, like, I'm not mad that she didn't hurt people, because I don't want people to be injured, right? But I am frustrated that if you're gonna go through the effort to commit a crime, like, why wouldn't you just fucking commit it? Like, fully commit to committing the crime.
You should have just hit these women in the head.
Like, you should
one shot, one kill.
That's what I said. I said you could do one.
Children.
It's just like, okay, when you look at the physics of it, you look at the physics of when you're holding something and you move it up and down with your hands.
Point of view, you're standing in your roommate's doorway.
and your roommate picks up the bat from under her bed and starts to show you the form. I know.
That did happen.
I know. I'll own up to it. And so
I think that really adds the Chicago of it all, too, that we
baseball
both
bats.
just have metal baseball bats by our beds.
Just in case.
Just in case. But it was there handily for you to explain your critique of a woman who was parking her car in the street and jumping out of it to run after people with baseball bats. The Chicago of all of that. Really something special.
It's just like...
I'm Jordan.
It's bad form. I'm Lex.
And this has been Or Learn Parkour. See you in 2 weeks.
I'm telling you, the inertia of a side swing is going to be so much more damage than the fucking, like, you have the risk of injuring yourself. Not, like, it's not only that you're starting to hurt yourself.
Yes.
If the goal is to hurt another person, why not do it right? One hit, one kill, just one shot it. You could kill someone with a baseball bat with one swing, and the fact that she didn't is upsetting to me. It's upsetting to me.
Da 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 da.